All right. Here we go. Great. Okay. Well, welcome everyone. Thank you for joining us this morning. Like Jerry Beth said, if you're on vacation, I hope this is the only thing you're doing today, getting back to enjoying your break. We're going to be talking this morning about the FY24 ESSER 2.0 and 3.0 funding application update. And of course, we always like to get started and have a reminder that everything we do is grounded in the components of Best for All. And we know that ESSER funding touches each of these, whether it's academics, student readiness, or educators. So we'll go through our agenda this morning. And just as a quick reminder, if you notice that you are not on mute, if you would please mute your microphone. That way we don't get any feedback. And if you have questions along the way, you can type those in the chat. We will have some time at the end where we can address any questions. So the first thing we're going to talk about is some reminders about the pre-approval. Then we'll go through some information about the ESSER 2.0 carryover. We'll look at the FY24 ESSER 3.0 funding application. We'll go through a few key reminders and best practices, and then we will talk about the ESSER 3 required planning, our last round of planning addenda. I'm sure everyone's happy about that. We'll do a quick check for understanding, and then we will share some helpful resources for you guys. So the pre-approvals, not much has changed this year. They are still located in the same place in ePlan. They are under the data and information section. They are still under 2021. So when you're going in, if you need to make revisions or add things, you will need to make sure that you have clicked that 2021. We have just housed those there and kept them in the same place the entire time. And then you'll find whether it's the ESSER 2 pre-approval or the 3, those will both be listed, so you can choose the one that you need to refer to. So some reminders for pre-approvals. When you are going in, if you are making revisions to your pre-approval, and I know we'll talk about this with funding applications as well, it's really best practice to note that by simply stating revision and the date. That's all you need to do. That helps us as a team when we get funding applications, we get pre-approval updates in, to be able to go in and review those quickly and get that turned around in a timely manner for you all, so that we don't necessarily have to kind of go in and search and dig for what has been changed. So you'll see that first example, they left the information and just added that revision at the end that, you know, the materials cost is increased, so they need to increase the budget. And that's really all we need. If you do have projects that the LEA has decided they're not going to fund with ESSER, then they need to take those out. We ask that you do not delete those from the pre-approval. You can just note that it is no longer being funded through ESSER and include the date like we mentioned. You can change that amount to 0, and, you know, for whatever reason you have, you can just let us know that this is no longer going to be funded with ESSER funds. We know that some things have come up with supply chain and costs have changed and things like that. So we know this has happened quite a bit, but we just ask that you would leave that information and just note that it's not going to be funded through ESSER anymore. If for some reason your pre-approval is denied, if something's not allowable, or if it's returned for some revisions, please make sure that any revisions that you are also noting those in the funding application. So for example, if we ask for something in the pre-approval to be removed, perhaps it's not allowable, it also needs to be removed in the funding application. If you are making revisions to your funding applications on the flip side of this, and those might require pre-approval, it's best to revise your pre-approval and get that submitted as soon as possible so that we can review and approve that and get your funding application approved quickly. So for example, you may be purchasing trailers and you've put that in your funding application, but you also would need to submit your pre-approval in order to get that all taken care of. And I know Jerry Beth mentioned, as I said previously, when we were talking about deleting old information, it's really helpful to keep that, to have that historical data and for monitoring and compliances and those purposes. So just thinking through submitting those pre-approvals, I know things have changed quite a bit since all of this started, and we're not necessarily in the COVID mindset, but these still must be clearly aligned to the purpose of ESSER funds. And that purpose is to prevent, prepare for, and respond to COVID-19. So these need to be clearly aligned to that. Anything that we're asking for with these funds should tie to the purpose of this grant. And then you would, of course, need to describe your anticipated benefits. So how many students are going to be impacted? What are your objectives? Those types of things. We also require that you include a timeline for your project. I know we have discussed this before, but all the projects that are funded with ESSER have to be done within the time constraints of the grant. So if you have a project that you're funding with ESSER, and it's not going to be done until 2025, then you would need to fund that with another source. You also need to include, of course, your cost, justification. If you are looking for approval to do a non-competitive bid process, you need to have some justification for why that is. And then, of course, aligning your funding application with your pre-approval. They really should kind of mirror that language. And then this one is one that we forget a lot, is having all your responsible parties review and submit. So we've seen a lot of times with pre-approval and funding applications that maybe the ESSER director has submitted it and it's sitting in someone else's inbox waiting to be clicked up. So you may have to remind them to do that sometimes because it's easy to kind of overlook that. We do not get notified until it comes in as LEA authorized representative approved. So that has to be clicked up through those different levels before we are able to review and approve. So we'll just take a quick little review. You can, if you want to throw it in the chat, what you think, but how do you think this LEA can improve their revision? And I'll give you just a minute to read through it, and I'll even give you a little hint. You pay close attention to the last part of the revision. What could they have done to make this revision better? And I'll give you guys just a moment. Okay, so if you notice, the main changes are in that last sentence. Yes, Stacy, thank you. Adding the date, if you see here, so instead of changing that last sentence, they just added the date with the revision and then included a sentence to tell us what that revision was. So the old information is there, but we can very clearly and very quickly see what has been changed. So they just noted that supplies have increased in costs. They need to make some timeline adjustments, and we need to increase the budget and extend the timeline. So they just added a sentence to let us know what was going on and what needed to be changed. And that really helps on our end to be able to get that reviewed quicker and have a faster turnaround time for you all. So I'm going to hand it over to Jerry Beth to talk through the ESSER 2.0 carryover.
Thank you, Julia. And good morning again, everyone. As she mentioned, I will be talking about the FY24 ESSER 2.0 carryover application, and this is going to be an application for a very brief period of time, but hopefully this is an option that some of you will take advantage of that will give you a little more time if needed to expend these funds. So any LEA with remaining funds after June 30th that have not been obligated or liquidated can utilize this carryover application, but you must prioritize the submission of that FY23 ESSER 2.0 final expenditure report, or FER. So the FER must be submitted and approved by the department in order for your carryover funds to become available in ePlan. So as a final deadline, though, for that FER, it is July 28th. Hopefully you could get it completed earlier because, again, this is a very short turnaround time, but you do have until July 28th to do that FER. But again, please note that your carryover monies will not be available in ePlan until that has been submitted and approved. So if you are doing this carryover application, it must be submitted on or before August 15th. And you must, it must be approved prior to you obligating the funds in the application. A few things, yes, you do have to complete the entire application again. However, if you're not making changes, you can carry forward your narratives and information from the FY23. If you do include changes in your capital projects, make sure, as Julia mentioned before, that you are also making those changes in your ESSER pre-approval request as well. And again, we have that pathway and ePlan there. That is one, as she mentioned as well, that is easy to get lost because we have housed it in 2021. Also, we have linked the ESSER checklist in the presentation, just for your information. It has all the pertinent information that you may need for making these changes. So if you are utilizing this application, you need to obligate all your funds by September 30th, 2023. Your board approval form is due by October 1st, 2023, and you must liquidate these funds by December 15th, 2023. The actual deadline is December 31st, but we are asking December 15th in order to give the state at least a few days, and we know there's some holiday time in there as well, to kind of finalize everything with the final expenditures of the money. Okay, so just a brief reminder about obligation and liquidation. You obligate funds when you commit those funds to a specific purpose, whether it be contracts, services, subscriptions, materials. That is when you obligate the funds and when you commit the money. And so that, again, your deadline will be September 30th to obligate. When you liquidate an obligation, that means that you have received your items, the service has been performed, and you have made a payment to either the vendor or provider. And so with the federal regulations, this liquidation must happen no later than 120 days after the end of the funding period, which of course is September 30th. So we have a question at the bottom. An LEA receives an order of ELA consumables on July 23rd, 2023, and pays for them on August 6th, 2023. Yes, Stacy, that is liquidate. That is obligated and liquidated definitely within the time period of this ESSER 2.0 carryover application. Just want to take a minute to also talk about employee pay. We have had a lot of questions from people already about whether this carryover can be used to pay employees. When you are paying someone with federal funds, those services are provided and considered obligated actually when the service is rendered or the work is performed. So based on this rule, you could pay an employee through September 30th, but you could not pay them after that point in time during the actual liquidation period, because again, when the work happens is when it's obligated, and you cannot obligate after September 30th. So if you are paying employees, please keep this in mind. And finally, with ESSER 2.0 coming to an end, we, of course, strongly encourage everyone to liquidate all of these funds. But if you do need to release any funds, if that decision has been made, we encourage you to do this as quickly as possible. There is a link there to the release of funds form. And if you have any money whatsoever, even if it's, say, $1.50, that release of funds form would need to be completed and submitted to officially release the funds.
Jerry Beth, we had just a quick question while we're in here about the board approval for ESSER 2. If you don't mind going back to that.
Sure. Okay, board approval, and this is for this ESSER 2.0 carryover application only. Previously we had ESSER 2 and ESSER 3 on one board approval form, but since the dates are going to be different this year for the two applications, and this carryover is for a very short turnaround time, we have set a different date for the board approval form just for this carryover application, and it is October 1st, 2023. Okay, I am now going to turn it over to Michelle, who will talk about the ESSER 3.0 funding application.
Thank you, Jerry Beth, and good morning, everyone. So with the ESSER 3.0, we still have the learning loss set aside. Districts are required to spend 20% of their total ESSER 3.0 allocation on learning loss. For FY24, LEAs will provide the total amount expended toward learning loss in FY22 and in FY23 on the spending plan. The required 20% will be preloaded, and the amount left to spend in FY24 will then auto-calculate. LEAs will also be asked to check assurances stating that the amounts expended for FY22 and FY23 toward learning loss are correct and subject to monitoring and oversight. Next page, please. And this is what it will actually look like in E-Plan. You can see there at the top, that is where you will check your assurances for the amounts that you have listed for FY22 and FY23. And then also you will see where the 20%, the minimum 20% will be pre-populated. And then you will go in and add your FY22 and FY23 expenditures for that to auto-calculate. Now, and next slide, please. Now, to make sure that you have the correct amounts for FY22 and FY23, we do highly recommend that you use the learning loss tool that we have highlighted here in the PowerPoint and that you'll have access to. It will give you specific directions on how to go into E-Plan and calculate the actual expenditures that were in FY22 and 23 for learning loss. We also do encourage you to attend the weekly office hours and reach out to us at any time for additional assistance as you are doing this. Next slide. And so here's just a few reminders for ESSER 3.0. The ESSER 3.0 FER is due on or before October 1st, 2023. The funding application for ESSER 3.0 will not be able to be reviewed or approved until the FER has been submitted and approved. So all ESSER 3.0 funding applications will be due on or before November 1st. And then the board approval form for ESSER 3.0, like Jerry Beth mentioned, it will be separate from your 2.0 board approval form. The 3.0 form will be due on or before December 1st, 2023. Next page, please. And just another reminder here, I believe it was last year that the optional tags were added to help with the ESSER F when you were doing the ESSER F reporting. And those optional tags are for the 4 main buckets in the ESSER F reporting tool. We do highly encourage you to use those tags. And also, if you are using any of your funds with Tennessee All-Core, then you must tag those funds, those allocations with Tennessee All-Core with that optional program tag as well. And now I'm going to turn it over to Joya for some key reminders and best practices.
Thank you. All right. So as you move forward into completing your FY24 funding application, you can copy over information from the previous year. And this is only for the budget, just to keep that in mind. So when you go into your FY24 funding application and you click Draft Started, you can go into your budget section and click Copy 2023 budget detail, and that will carry forward your budget information from your last approved application. And once you copy that forward from there, you can make any adjustments that you need, but you have that information already there. The other sections you cannot copy forward. However, you can do some things to help if you are not making a lot of changes, which we know coming into this last year with ESSER 3, a lot of people are just kind of continuing their initiatives. So there may not be a lot of changes made. So you can go into your previous funding application and copy that information to paste if you want to put that in a Word document, and just copy that over your narratives and things like that. You can also choose the print function in your previous funding application. And from there, you'll be able to get a PDF file, which you can use to copy that information forward as well. So that may save you just a little bit of time moving forward when you're working on those FY24 applications. So just some more reminders as we move into our last year of ESSER 3. Use those recommended line items. This document is linked here in the presentation. It is also in TDOE resources, and it is also in the funding application. So last year we went in and we had some various resources linked in the funding applications so that they are readily available. So this is there. It has the recommended account and line items. It does have most of the things that you will need, but there may be a few things here and there that aren't listed. So you, of course, can always reach out to one of us if you need some assistance with that. Make sure that all the funding application sections are aligned. Your pre-approval should be aligned with your budget. Your narratives should be aligned in your spending plan and in your budget, and that they are also clearly aligned to the purpose of ESSER funds. If we return this to the LEA for any revisions, please make sure that you go through the checklist and you attend to all those changes. So if you're not sure where to look, when you go into your funding application and you look at the sections, there is an ESSER checklist at the bottom of each section. And from there, when you click that, it is divided up into each section of the funding application, and any revisions that are needed are going to be listed there. So we ask that you make sure that you go in, check that you have attended to all of those. Occasionally, we may put a revision a requested change at the top. There's just kind of a general box there. So if you just have maybe one small change, we can go ahead and approve that, and we may list there that in your next revision, please update this. So that is something to make sure that you're looking at also as we move forward, just making sure that we attend to all those changes, and that will save some time on everyone's end. Those changes, like I mentioned, they are going to be in that ESSER checklist. And please always make sure that your pre-approvals and your funding applications have been submitted as LEA authorized representative approved. So if it has been sitting there for a few days and you're wondering why it has not been reviewed, that could be the case. So if you just make sure that that has gone through all the levels of approval at your LEA so that we will be notified. You are required, we did talk about this a little bit, and I saw a question about board approval. You will be required to have board approval forms for both ESSER 2 and 3, and I believe Jerry Beth mentioned that these are separate this year because we have that short window of time for the ESSER 2 carryover. So these are going to be two separate documents. ESSER 2 is going to be due no later than October 1st. ESSER 3 board approval is no later than December 1st. If you go into TDOE resources, you can see the screenshots here, and you look under the ESSER 2 and the ESSER 3 under funding application related documents templates, then you'll see both of those board approval forms. And once you have those completed, you will upload those in the LEA document library. Just a few best practices before we talk about planning addenda. When you are revising your funding applications, your pre-approvals, we have mentioned this, I know, numerous times. It's really best practice to note all your revisions so we can get those reviewed quickly and get that turned around in a timely manner. Make sure that you are providing detailed descriptions for clarity. So that when we read it, we know exactly what you are asking for, exactly what you are doing with these funds. This also helps when determining those federal cost principles. Is it reasonable? Is it necessary? Is it allocable? When you add items in your budgets that may need a pre-approval, make sure that you do that at the same time, get that pre-approval submitted, so that will speed up the process. One thing that Jerry Beth, I believe, mentioned is we have the ESSER checklist for LEAs, which is linked in the funding applications. It's in TDO resources. I believe it's also linked in the pre-approvals. And that is very helpful to have if you want to print that out. Just keep that so you can make sure that you have attended to all the changes that you need. Utilize those resources that we have mentioned. We tried to make it as easy as possible to find the things that you would probably need more often. So those are linked. And then, of course, if you have other questions or you need assistance with anything else, reach out to your regional coordinator with any questions or for technical assistance. We will have a slide at the end if you're not sure who covers you, because we have had some changes over the last year or two. We will share that information as well. Yes, Krista, it is already uploaded in ePlan and TDOE resources, and I will chat the link in just a minute. Now we're going to go back to Jerry Beth and talk about planning addenda.
Okay, as Julia mentioned earlier, this will be your last required update of your public plans. A lot of the things I'm going to be talking about are basically reminders. I know that many of you have completed this process a few times already, but we would like to go through everything just again. As a reminder, the ESSER 3.0 public plans are federally required, and the requirements under this planning is pretty specific in the guidance. So again, a lot of the things we're saying are reminders. It's things you have done, but we are reminding you of some of these specifics just because it is in that guidance. So the update is due every 6 months through September 30th, 2023. For your plans, you must seek public input on the plans because the purpose of this is to keep your stakeholders informed and to give them a voice in the process. All versions of your plans must be translated and publicly posted. Your plans must be approved by the department prior to posting on the publicly available website. And if during the process, the submission and approval process, if there are any changes needed, we will contact your ESSER POC point of contact of any of those needed changes. Okay, so the Safe Return to In-Person Learning and Continuity of Services Plan, which we all know as the Health and Safety Plan. This final update will be due by September 15th, 2023. And there is the path in ePlan where it is to be uploaded. And the note at the bottom, as we have asked before, it is very helpful when you do upload this that you include the date and you can just put September 2023. That just helps keep all these different versions of the plan straight. So some of the required information, and again, this is very clear in the guidance as to what is required for this plan. And I know at this time, we don't have quite the safety issues that we have had in the past pertaining to COVID, but these requirements still stand. So these are things that you do need to do for this last version of your plan. So you need to describe how you have continued to engage in meaningful consultation with your stakeholders in the development of this revised plan, and also how you engage the health department in the development of the revised plan. The guidance specifically states consultation with local health departments, health officials in developing this particular plan. You also need to provide, to the extent to which you have updated any adopted policies, and a description of the policies on each of the following health and safety strategies. And again, these policies, when it says policies, it does not necessarily mean official school board policies, but they could just be administrative policies that are in place in your LEA. You also need to provide a current description as to how you are ensuring a continuity of services, which include but are not limited to services to address students' academic needs, students and staff's social, emotional, mental health, and other needs, and that may include student health and food services. So some key reminders, once again, you must engage the health department in the development of the plan. Engagement, that does not necessarily mean providing the health department with COVID-19 case numbers. It means meaningfully consult with health officials regarding the most current protocols surrounding safe practices. And as before, your plans must explicitly address every bullet point in question 3 regarding your policies and strategies. And you must revisit all of the questions in the template to address the most current health and safety issues as they relate to in-person learning. We did have updated guidance from December of 2022 from USED about determining if no revisions are needed to this particular plan. And that was in effect for the last time that you updated this plan as well. But even though it does say that you don't have to make revisions, you do need to go through the process, review your plan, ensure you are considering any public input, you are consulting with the health department, and you are communicating your decision clearly to the public. So you can make no revisions. However, if that is the case, it is determined that no revisions need to be made, we ask that you please include your previous responses from your last update. And this is, you are going to be publicly posting this plan. So just think about, you know, if this is on your website, if it just says no revisions, that's not really going to give anyone any information. So if you can just please include your previous response, even if you aren't making any revisions. Okay, so the ESSER 3.0 public spending plan, which, you know, we changed the name a while back. It's the public plan for remaining funds. This plan will also be due on or before September 15th. We have the location in ePlan listed here as to where it should be uploaded. We ask again that you please put the date in the file name, just to ensure that we know what update this is. This update will, and that box at the bottom, that is what is on the first page. We will include ESSER 2.0 as well as ESSER 3.0 in the public spending plan. And as you can see on this slide, ESSER 2 is included. If you have liquidated your funds, you are not utilizing the carryover application for ESSER 2.0, you can put zeros here. But we did include it as we know that there will be some LEAs that will be utilizing that carryover application, and we'll need to include it on here as well. So the totals at the bottom of this page, as a reminder, should equal the amounts for your remaining funds for each ESSER fund that is listed on the first page. These amounts should reflect your carryover amounts for both ESSER 2 and ESSER 3. On this particular page where it has the activities divided out, if you're unsure about which activity category in which to place amounts, use your discretion to choose the most appropriate one, and remember that you only report funds one time in one activity line. As with the health and safety plan, you need to complete all questions in the document. And as a reminder, you can see under academics that number 2, describe initiatives included in the other category. If you had listed an amount on the previous page for other, we ask that you just include a brief description or listing of those activities that are included under other. So a few more reminders, I will say probably in the last couple of times these plans have been submitted, it is with these questions that we have had to ask for more information from LEAs. So we just wanted to go over these reminders once again. You need to ensure that you use multiple modes of engagement to communicate with your stakeholders to get input. We put some examples here: surveys, in-person or virtual meetings, town hall, other inclusive engagement opportunities. You should also actively engage all applicable groups that are noted in this meaningful consultation during the crafting of the plan. The number of stakeholders engaged should represent the composition of your students. For example, if students with disabilities make up 15% of your student population, then 10 to 20% of the respondents should represent this subgroup. And also, you should ensure that your stakeholder engagement happened prior to the development or the revision of this plan. So again, some of these will be repeated, but final reminders as to these 2 required planning documents. On the cover page and summary page of the ESSER plan, the amount should total for each relief fund, ESSER 2 and ESSER 3. You must respond to all questions in the document. The stakeholder engagement responses should closely align with the stakeholder engagement in your health and safety plan. Also ensure that you use multiple modes of engagement offered to stakeholders. And again, that one is one that is very clearly stated in the guidance from US Ed. I know a lot of people utilize surveys, but it does specify multiple modes of engagement. So there should be other methods that are utilized as well. LEAs should engage all applicable groups noted in meaningful consultation during the crafting of the plan. The number of stakeholders engaged should represent the composition of your student population. Ensure that your stakeholder engagement happens prior to your revision of this plan. And also, these plans do require local board approval, and documentation for this must be kept at the LEA level. Unlike the funding applications, we do not have a specific form, nor does any form have to be uploaded to ePlan for this approval. The approval of your plans, again, is just kept at the local level for you and for any compliance measures that may come in the future. That is all for the required planning addenda. Next, Michelle is going to go over some checks for understanding.
All right, let's go ahead and have a couple of questions. So the first question, if a pre-approved expenditure increases in cost, the LEA must A, update the amount in the funding application, B, update the amount in the pre-approval, C, leave the funding application and pre-approval as is, D, email the relief funding coordinator to let them know, or E, both A and B. Go ahead and put your answer in the chat. All right, I see a lot of E's, and that is correct. You would need to update both your funding application and your pre-approval request. Next question. When must ESSER 2.0 carryover funds be obligated by? A, August 15th, 2023, B, September 15th, 2023, C, September 30th, 2023, or D, December 15th, 2023. All right, I see a lot of C's, and that is correct. It is September 30th, 2023. LEAs do not have to provide their previous learning loss expenditures in the funding application. Would this be true or false? All right, I see a lot of false. You are correct. You do have to provide your previous learning loss expenditures, and that would be your FY22 and your FY23 for this application. Next, the planning addenda are due on A, February the 1st, B, March the 1st, C, September the 15th, or D, September the 30th. It is September the 15th. LEAs can simply write no revisions in their health and safety plan. Would this be true or false? Okay, I'm glad to see this one didn't trip you up. It did trip me up a little bit yesterday. So yes, you cannot simply write no revisions. If there are, you do still have to go through the process of planning, like Jerry Beth said, talking with your health department. And then if there are no revisions to be made, you can write no revisions, but you also need to keep that information, the prior information in the plan. So that would be false. Great. Next, we have a bonus question. LEAs may receive reimbursement for allowable expenses dating back to when? We've got A, January 1st, 2020, B, March 13th, 2020, C, June 30th, 2020, or D, July 1st, 2020. And that is correct. I see a lot of B's. That is March 13th, 2020. All right, and we have in the PowerPoint, we have linked a lot of resources for you that you'll be able to access. These resources are housed in ePlan under TDO resources as well, but you'll be able to use the quick links in this PowerPoint to access those if you wish. Please note that we do have the link to our weekly office hours. Those office hours take place every Wednesday morning from 9 Central Time and 10 Eastern Time. It's a great opportunity to ask not only us questions, but also to collaborate with one another. So that is in the resource page as well. Next page. This page shows the relief funding contact information. So our coordinator information is here for you. Also, since we are jointly serving Middle Tennessee together, we do have the map in this PowerPoint. If you'll go to the next page, please. The map does show which districts we are serving. So you can see Julia is serving those in red, Jerry Beth, those in white, and I'm serving those in blue. So you may want to check out that map just to make sure that you have the correct coordinator information so you can contact one of us. And just I want to take this time to thank you for your continued work with relief funds for the health, safety, and improvement of your district. I know many of you wear several different hats, and we do appreciate everything you do for your district and for the state of Tennessee. If you do not mind, please use the QR code or the address that's linked in our PowerPoint and provide us with your feedback. We really do appreciate getting that feedback. It helps us to plan. And again, just thank you for spending this time with us this morning. And we look forward to seeing you again during office hours in the future. And if there are any questions, please feel free to put those in the chat as well. We